Welcome to Ladies Talk Show. We are in chapter 8. And if you know anything about communication, this is blowing you away. It's like the next level. Okay, because it's not just be communicating to share yourself, which is good. We need to share ourselves, but it's like being careful, walking on eggshells. Sorry about that, but guess what? If you do that, the results are closeness. Thank you. The number one thing missing for women today. Well, maybe, whatever. Maybe you have some closeness, but here we're going to teach you how to get more. So we are on Marriage Secrets, page 183, and we're in the middle of chapter 8. Okay, soft language. Hazal tell us, that's the sages, tell us that when you speak from the heart, it enters the heart, as the Pasuk states, as water reflects a face back to a face, so one's heart is reflected back to him by another. That is, the human heart intuits the emotions of others. Thus, if one speaks with an open heart, the heart of the listener will be open as well. How do you do that? I'm going to tell you right now. Speaking with an open heart means thinking about what you are going to say before you say it. This is harder for some people, easier for some people. We all need to be working on it, though. If we want closeness, okay, your choice. Okay, it means making the environment safe so that your husband can hear what you're saying without fear of verbal or emotional attack. When it's safe, a husband will want his wife to share all of her thoughts, ideas, dreams, and amusing anecdotes. The secret is to use soft language. As King Solomon said, the words of the wise, when spoken gently, are heeded. Here are some examples of soft language statements that work like a charm. It may take some getting used to, since having a soft tone has been all but banished in our modern society. But memorizing a couple of these phrases and using them often will create a warmth that is easier to witness than to describe. The most salient point is, with determination to say things in a soft manner to your husband, your communication effectiveness will be greatly improved. Here are some examples, some sample ideas of soft language. Okay, you guys ready? Yeah, ready? Okay, good. Okay, soft language examples. This is my favorite one, actually. I start off with my favorite one. Is it possible? Write that down. Is it possible that we eat dinner in about 10 minutes? Rather than saying, oh, come on, we're eating in 10 minutes, be here or else. Is it possible that we eat dinner in about 10 minutes? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think if we go to my parents for Yontif? Have you thought about getting takeout food for dinner or anything else? Have you thought about it? Beautiful. And what do you think? These are things that you say. Is it possible? These are things you say, soft language that makes it be heard like magic. You can't believe it. You got to try this to believe it. You're like, oh, this is like, why didn't I know this before? Okay. Would it be possible to ask you a favor? The trash bag is full. I have an interesting idea that might appeal to you. How about building the sukkah on Motzei Shabbos? If you agree, these are all bullet points, by the way, on page 184. If you agree, I'd like to go ahead and order the new dishwasher. Let me run a few ideas by you to see if one might work. Are you open to hearing some thoughts about this? If you agree, I'd like to invite the neighbors for Shabbos, whatever it is. Those are all examples of soft language. Initially, your tongue may trip over these phrases, since treating a husband like a king is so disdained in our society. Acting reverentially to a husband is antithetical to our indoctrination of equality at all costs. And yet, this very behavior that our tradition guides us towards builds our husband up into the man we have always longed to look up to. At first, my students tend to be skeptical when I teach these phrases. But when they come back to class the following week, having tried them, they report miracles in their homes. Their husbands revel in it and becomes ever more energized to please them. Did you hear that? Ever more energized to please them. The bottom line is, it may be challenging at first, but if you can keep your eye on the fact that a great many benefits will accrue to you personally from doing this, it might make it easier. It may feel odd, but hopefully you will quickly witness that it actually happens to work. The end result will be a husband who cherishes you because of it. As we know from prior chapters, If our husband feels like he has the power, he seeks our advice. If he feels like we're trying to take control, he will try to dominate the situation. While soft language may seem to have a submissive quality, it does not mean that our opinion isn't valuable. In fact, the respectful tone makes our husband solicit our opinion even more. Again, as we've seen in our sources, it is far greater to have influence than to try to gain control, which is a losing battle that ends up making us stressed out and adversarial. My personal favorite phrase is it possible? Since it seems to work in so many situations. I'm sure you can even come up with your own phrases that fit your personality better. But hopefully you can see how appealing and a humble tone would feel to a husband or to anyone for that matter. As you'll hopefully see quickly, soft language with our husband has a very high success rate. And the beauty is that if you forget, you can often repair the damage by saying, whoops, I realized that it didn't come out right. Do you mind if I try again? It's all a work in progress. But through trial and error and seeing what produces the best results, many pointless daily conflicts can be avoided. Soft language will also make us feel more in control of ourselves rather than blurting out our latest list of demands. Done correctly, a soft tone can make our husband feel safe instead of criticized, judged, or like he can't do anything right. We may have spoken harshly for decades, but with determination, a new habit can certainly be learned. If we start out speaking softly, even one time each day, meaning once a day, we moderate our tone and hold our tongue instead of saying something forcefully. With enough determination, soon it will go to twice a day, etc. And as we know, if we are determined, Hashem will help us. Okay, ladies, I'm ready for your questions. Let's go.
Okay, so Rachel asks, I have a cat I really love. My husband does not like her, and the feeling is mutual. The other day, he scared her, and she scratched his hand. He threatened to put her out on the street. I want to make my husband my priority, but I'm afraid that if I get rid of my cat, I will always resent him for making me choose between them. How can I communicate this to him?
Oh, this is tough. Oy, 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 oy. This is gonna get me. What's her name? Rachel? Yeah, Rachel, you are gonna get me in hot water with animal lovers because this is a very, very tough question. But there's no question what our answer is from our 3,000-year-old track record of success in Shalom Bayis. And the question I have to ask you, I get it. I get that love between you and your cat. I get that closeness between you and your cat. But here's the thing, this is a balance, and it's a very fine balance. And the more close you are to your cat, the less close you are to your husband. This is your choice. This is you have to realize that's the choice you're making. And the more less close you are to your cat, the more close you are to your husband. Here's your husband, okay? So this is a very, very tough one. But once you understand with absolute clarity that your deepest mission in life is to achieve closeness to your husband and to take care of your husband. Under the chuppah, when you got married to your husband, God took your husband's neshama, which is the other half of your neshama, he placed it in your hands to take care of. And scratching him through your cat, this is very tough. I get it. So I get where your heart is, because you said you want to be closer to your husband, but you're afraid you'll forever resent him. I've got an instant cure for that. Instant. Which is, if you were to ask God, if you had the merit to, none of us do, whatever, to ask God himself and say, God, what should I do? What can I do? This is like this impossible situation. What should I do? You already know what God's answer is going to be. You know, he's going to say, I'm so sorry, sweetie pie. I'm so sorry. I get it. You love your cat. You're close to your cat. You've cared for your cat. You've raised your cat. I get it. But you're causing damage to your husband, and you're causing damage to your family life, and you're causing damage to your own soul being able to bond deeply and tightly with your other half of your soul. It's like, here they're coming close, and you're just taking this giant wrench and throwing it right in the middle so they can't connect. So if you understand that on a deep spiritual level, that's what what God would say about this, right? You don't need Leah Richheimer to say, hey, what do you think? It's like, the years of resentment afterwards is a risk of giving your cat to somebody who can care for him properly, that doesn't have this issue in their home. God willing, you can find such a place for that. There's rescues, I don't know, it's out of my pay scale, but you're doing it, right? Any resentment you feel for years later is a cost to yourself. That will be calculated in Shemayim. God will be looking at this saying, oh my goodness, look what she did for Shalom Bayis. Look what she did. You know what? They were supposed to not be able to buy a house until the husband turned, X year to 54 years old. She did this huge sacrifice for Shalom Bayis. I'm going to actually make the house up the street that they've had their eye on go up for sale, and the person not have a realtor and just come to them directly and ask them and say, listen, we'll take the payments. You just pay us what you can. I don't know. I'm making up all kinds of crazy things. Is this beyond God's capacity? Hello, he can do anything. He's infinite. I'm just telling you right now, guaranteed, if you make this sacrifice for Shalom Bayis, and years later you start resenting and building the resentment, I guarantee you will start popping up. God will give you, please God, a gift. He for sure will take care of you. He for sure bracha will pour into your home for doing this. Okay? He for sure will do it. You might have the merit to see it, you may not. So in other words, you might, if you're supposed to walk up a curb and break your leg and be in the hospital for 2 months and have rehab for a year, right? And God gives you a blessing that you step on the curb normally and just go on about your business, you wouldn't know it. After 120, when you get upstairs and see the whole replay of your entire life, you'll say, oh, wow, thank you, God. I didn't realize you saved me. So it is guaranteed, if you do this for Shalom Bayis, God will reward you in some way. Sometimes we see it. Sometimes it's like, I've had a woman who said she was in control for her husband for 4 years, and he was trying, his business never make it, and they're like, and he tried this big risk, and everything. She started letting him have control and saying, whatever you want to do, however you decide, whatever. She started giving the control to her husband. Within a month, her husband closed a deal on buying a huge warehouse that he got for like whatever. And she said their whole Parnassa situation completely reversed. She knows, she's absolutely clear it was because she put her husband first and gave him that contribution. So I'm going a very long-winded, mostly because you know the answer already before you ask the question. I'm just giving you the koya and the strength to realize it will be worth your while. It might be one of the hardest things you've ever done in your life, to take the cat, hug her, and hand her to somebody else. As you're handing her, you should feel God's blessing. You should say, God, I hope you get this. It's so hard. You're welcome to cry. You're welcome to mourn. You're welcome to say to your husband, I'm doing this for you. Buy me a bracelet, whatever, something. You are welcome to do that. But the bottom line is, you know already what the right thing to do. Everything I've said is just to bolster you and to give you kayak and strength to do it. And if you have the resentment after, that's part of your husband, that's part of God. God is watching how hard it is for you to get over that resentment. It's a process, but the guarantee is God will bless that decision. And God willing, instead of having a cat in between you and your husband, there'll be closeness there that you'll be able to absolutely feel, and it'll be worth it to you. Okay, sorry for the long-winded, but it was really important, and I get you. I feel it. I feel it with the cat. Oy, 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 oy. I'm sorry to be the one to bear that news to you. You already knew the answer before you asked the question. What? Okay, what do we got next?
That's beautiful. And I also just wanted to say that tip about having conversation with Hashem and hearing his answer is such a good tip for life. Just like, what would Hashem answer?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Shauna asks, my issue is working up the nerve to even use soft language to speak with my husband because I'm so afraid of rejection. How do I know if I'm walking on eggshells to a healthy degree or to an unhealthy degree?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. Hmm. You know, I really think that you have a inner sense of self. And if you don't have like a lot of people grew up with, this whole thing about self-esteem and who am I and identity and strength and trusting yourself and following your gut instincts. All these things are all mushed around in our head about what's the right thing to do. It's really a trial and error proposition. You are an individual, your husband's an individual, how the interaction goes. It could be that your husband grew up being a bully. Okay. If he grew up being a bully and you're too mushy and whatever, he'll bully you. And that isn't good either. On the other hand, maybe your husband is a mensch and he grew up and what do you think? Oh, well, I hope I didn't say that too harshly. I mean, good luck with that. Men don't usually even realize they're talking harshly. Go whatever, go a man to a man. It's like, hey, how are you doing? Good, good. How, whatever. So they don't get what whatever, like a woman will hear like, ooh, ooh. Okay. That's normal. But for this situation, it's a, trial and error. And I think if you take a look back on what has worked in your marriage, that's like the first place to go. Like even get a journal or a notepad or in your phone, something, start writing down what has worked in terms of your soft communication. If you say, is it possible? And he goes, no, it's not possible. And he says that all the time. Okay, then maybe he's got, he doesn't get it. Or maybe you've been grabbing control in every area of the life, do that. Oh, why'd you put the thing there? No, and put the groceries there. Why'd you put them there? And constantly you're criticizing him. Maybe that's what you grew up with. That's your habit, whatever. But hopefully you can get over it and grow and be a better person. But let's say you're constantly criticizing him, judging him and putting him down and bossing him around and trying to do everything my way. Okay. We know that all about it. So let's say you're doing that. And then you come here and you're starting to use soft language. It's not really going to, it might work a little bit. It's a fantastic, great start, but pulling back on all of your controlling behaviors, all of your micromanaging behaviors will help the soft language be heard better. So again, this is a process. You're trying this at home. You're doing trial and error. If you say, what do you think of blah, 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 and he's always shooting you down. So then next time, after 5 trials of that, say, I was wondering if we could do this. Would that be okay with you? Which is a little bit of a stronger, you're throwing your opinion into the soft language. So you've got to trial and error it. Walking on eggshells is always good. So even if look, I'm not an expert in controlling abuse, husbands that are bullying their wives and whatever. I'm not an expert in that, so I defer to your LOR, your local Orthodox Rav, or a therapist, or somebody who knows about this, or you can even read books and articles about it. However, I will say that if you tend towards walking on eggshells with everybody in your life, people think it's okay to just blurt out these mean things, it's not nice, actually in our culture, it's the more mean thing you say that puts somebody else down, the more lauded you are. You're a great comedian and you tell it like it is. Well, yeah, you do tell it like it is, but you pain everybody who's around you. And did you notice that all your close friends keep a distance from you? And or you don't have any close friends, like that. Okay, so it's not the get-to place. It doesn't follow our 3,000-year-old tradition of taking care of other people. We have to love our neighbor like ourselves. We like that. Okay, so for you, this is a trial and error thing. Try many, many, many things. Don't be afraid to be walking on eggshells. That's what we should be doing with everybody. And I'd love to hear back from you. Report back and email Ladies Talk Show, info@Ladies Talk Show, and let me know how it goes. But it's a trial and error thing. It's a great question, and it's a process. And having that question and growing this shows you're a mature lady who's trying to get closer in her marriage. And for that, yes, you're called. Good job. Okay.
Love it. Okay. So Dahlia asks, if something is one of my top 3 needs, and I know if I ask my husband in soft language, he won't think twice and tell me he wants to do it the easy way, which doesn't fulfill my need. Can I tell him this is what I need instead of asking, is it possible?
Oh,
in other words, she wants to be more direct instead of saying, is it possible? She doesn't want it to be a possibility. She wants it.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's a really good question. It's kind of marrying last chapter with this chapter and whatever. Yeah, it's good. So the problem with if your husband were to come you're sitting there and you're scrambling eggs and whatever, and he was come and say, I need the scrambled eggs sunny side up. I need them sunny side up. You'd be like, excuse me, what am I, a short order cook? But if he came in and he said, is it possible next time you make them sunny side up? You'd be like, sure. Yes, darling, I love you, sure. You know what I mean? Like, so I hear what you're saying, but even with your deep needs that you really need, if you say this, you get it. Okay. So I would still use the soft language. If you keep repeatedly use this soft language, it doesn't work. Use that soft language, it doesn't work. And you go all through those lists of whatever that I told, the samples that I said, and you give over, you said, would it be possible if this, or I blanking on them, and it was only a few minutes ago. But if you used all those soft language things, I use it. Is it possible like 90% of the time because I love it, and it works. My husband, feels like, oh, she's not bossing me around. Although I have make mistakes like everybody else. Anyway, in terms of bossing around. So if you try all of them and none of them works, then you might have to have a real heart-to-heart conversation with him. Sit him down, no phones, you make sure he's well, eaten well, slept well, whatever. And then you go through with him and say, listen, I keep trying to express what my needs are, and I don't feel like it's being heard, or, like that. And you can really talk from the heart. The problem is I have many, many women who think, one woman said, I need him to, help around the house, and they think, oh, that's one of my top 3 needs, to have him help around the house. And really, if he came around and said, okay, I'll get you a 2 full-time housekeepers who will do everything, and so I don't have to help around the house, she still would feel like, oh, what is she really needing from him? She's needing some kind of partnership, or she's needing some emotional support, or there's something else deeper underneath what her desire is. So her need, no matter how she, is it possible for you to help me do the touch? That's it's first of all, the tone is very important, but also it's like you have to really get she needs to cut at a deeper level of what her deep need is, not necessarily these things that she this fantasy she has of the perfect husband who walks in the door and says, what can I do for you now, dear? Okay. Oh, I finished that one. What can I do for you now? Like whatever. Okay. Get real. So you have to really dig deeper on your needs, and then your ability to communicate them, always do with soft language, is going to be the best bet. Very good question. Okay. Go ahead, Leah. What you got for me?
Okay. Roni asks, I am the opposite of controlling. My husband is actually pretty controlling. Do I still need to speak with my husband with soft language when he knows my innate nature does not want to control him?
Wow. So first of all, good. You're teaching the next class. Because controlling is like the number one, not number one, but it's really at least the top 5 issues I'm seeing at marriages where people are having a lot of difficulties. I still would use the soft language because Chazal teaches how important that is. I mean, we have many sources for it. I read you a few of them. And I don't think there's any downside to it. I'm not sure what you think the downside is, but I don't think there's a downside to it. If you have another question, you can pop it in. We've got a few minutes. We have time for another couple of questions. So maybe in that time, if I didn't answer that fully for you, re-ask the question before the show goes off. Okay, go ahead, Gila.
Okay. Leora asks, I'm not the soft language type naturally. I tried saying, is it possible? But I guess it doesn't sound sincere. And my husband said, who do you think you're kidding? Don't even bother. I know it will take me a while for it not to come out sounding awkward. And he gets so annoyed in the meantime. I feel like giving up.
I see. I hear some of you longtime listeners. I just hear your wheels clicking of exactly the answer I'm about to give, which is this is something you need to discuss with your husband, and you need to say, dear sweetheart, again, there's a heart-to-heart convo. So this is like when no phones, no well-fed, whatever. The kids aren't about to burst in the door. Your mother-in-law is not about to call. This is heart-to-heart combo. It could be out to dinner. It could be it could be sitting in the backyard. It could be, walking in the neighborhood, something like that. And you are saying to your husband, you're saying, I'm really, really not, sure what to do, because I'm trying to grow my softness, because I went to a shear and I heard a class and I heard that, there's a benefit or how crucial it is to use soft language. But every time I use it for you, I'm trying, and it's really, really hard for me. And every time I use that language, you're like, who are you kidding? And whatever. And it's like, it's kind of thwarting my ability to try and grow in this area, because I want to get closer to you, and I want to be a better wife, and I want to do the right thing, and I want to follow Chazal, just like I follow Kashrus and I follow Shabbos and, all these halachas and all these laws. I want to be a better wife to you, but I feel like every time I try, you kind of shut me down. So I'm not trying to blame you or put you on the defensive. What I'm asking from you is that you let me try and grow in this area, because I think we'll both benefit from it. Okay? And then he'll be like, oh, okay. And I love you so much. And it doesn't have to be like a 3-hour conversation. It can be, you can just plant that seed and let it grow itself. A lot of times women, I give them advice to say, and they just hammer their husband with the advice, hammer until he agrees, or it's not necessary. If you just plant the seed and walk away, it could be even in the midst of, forget the heart-to-heart conversation, the midst of, you're saying, is it possible, whatever. And he says, cut the garbage, that's not your personality. I can tell you're trying to be somebody else. And you're like, right then and there, you can say, yeah, I am trying to be somebody else. I'm trying to grow to be softer language and kinder to you. That's where I'm growing. So don't, if you don't mind, don't cut me down about it. I'm really trying, and I'm working on it. That may not go as well as a heart to heart, but again, it's short and sweet. A heart to heart, you might get a rehashed thing. Sometimes you have a heart to heart. It's like regurgitate. That's not necessary. Men are very good. They'll hear the message, and then it just perkes. It's like planting a seed and give it time to grow. Excellent question. Okay, Gila, we'll time for one last question.
Okay, great. Meira asks, how do I know when to speak up with my husband or not? When do I know if I should try to let things go or bring things up with him?
That's a good question. So I don't understand your overall communication strategy with him, or plan, or how it works in your life. So, you need to think about this. Again, when we went over, the timing of saying things is very important, but also it's kind of like, are you talking about big things? If you're talking about big things, you need to set aside a very big time to talk about it. If it's a little thing, again, you can plant a seed here, plant a seed there, and, you might have to plant the seed 5 times before it kind of like percolates in his brain. It depends on your husband. Some husbands get it right away and it feels like haranguing them if you keep trying to explain it, like, I got it. Now, if he says, I got it, and then his behavior stays the same, it means you didn't get it. Okay. So then you have to say, by the way, I explained this to you once, I'll explain it again, do it as softly and sweetly as you can. Again, you're interested in results, not berating him and making him feel bad and putting him on the defensive and wagging your finger at him and making him feel bad. That's not what this is about. If that's part of the communication, you're better off with duct tape, hello, put your duct tape on and, whatever. So, but for this communication, my advice is to think about how you want your husband to hear, how is the best way you want your husband to hear the message, and give that a lot of thought before you open your mouth. Okay, our time is up. So we're gonna continue with chapter 8 in the next show. Thank you so much for being with us. And hold on a second, I just got to get you some homework. Give me a second here. Homework for this week is one time this week, when you are about to jump down your husband's throat or yell something or whatever, say, is it possible? Or say, what do you think of the idea of X? Or any of the other examples that I gave, give those over to your husband. So one time this week, you're trying to use soft language. I wish you the best of luck. Hashem should bench you. It's hard work. It's hard to remember. It's hard to execute. And the good news is the rewards are eternal. Okay, this is Leah Richheimer for the Ladies Talk Show. We'll see you next time. Bye. If you want more, we have so much more. If you want to learn our Masora and have an awesome marriage, the first thing we have is a foundations course. It's a 13-week course. You get all your questions answered. It's live with me, and you can ask Q&A. It's awesome. Second thing we have is a coaching program. If you are awesome with people and you want to know the Masora better than 99% of the people on the planet Earth, like for reals, okay? It's a 4-month program. It's very intense. We have major scholarships, and we have somebody who's granted in a lot to pay for a big bulk of it. It's still a little expensive, but for what you get, and then you can start charging money to know it. That's the coaching program. Don't miss it. Go to www.ladiestalkshow.com. Look up the foundations course, look up the coaching. We do retreats, we do all kinds of stuff. You'll find it there. www.ladiestalkshow.com. Thanks for being with us. Leah Richheimer for the Ladies Talk Show.